welcome to the Civic Engagement. I'm your boy K.Abdul Mahid with my co-host James Taylor. Tonight, we bring you the recall election in California of Governor Gov Newsom. I'll be posting a couple of things about the recall, but tonight we're going to give you all a detailed analysis. Why would you think the governor should be recalled, or why you think the Republicans decided to mount this effort? So there is no other person better to talk about this with my co-host James Taylor, Doctor of Political Science. James Taylor, welcome to the Civic Engagement.
It's been great debate.
Thank you.
Oh,
So James, yeah, I'm fine. You know, we are vaccinated, so we don't need a mask.
Right.
Yeah,
That's true.
okay, yeah. So JT, a lot has been going on. A lot of people have been crisscrossing the state, and we've heard about the recall. So, what is your take before we dive? What's your general take before we go into details?
I would suggest that the recall reflects sort of the decline in popular support for both parties, but in California, especially for the Republican Party, to the degree that recall efforts have become more common in the last 30 years than they had in the previous 80 in the state and across the country. The reason for the recall is political, not legal. The Constitution of California does not require it to be a violation of law that warrants your removal, like an impeachment would if you're a governor being impeached, or president being impeached, or a judge being impeached. So, in other words, there's for no cause. The governor can be removed without cause, just because he's unpopular or she's unpopular, and enough votes can be garnered by opposition, and the thresholds are 10% and 12% of the previous election that determines how many signatures are needed. And people are given more time to get these signatures. So again, California, in an attempt to be an open state, a state that is accountable to the people, or the people have democratic controls over government, where they can remove officers like they removed the senator in 1913. California's one of 19 states that has the recall. And every governor in the past 60 years of California's history have had someone try to recall them. We've had 55 recall attempts. But again, you look at the balance of this, it's become more of a recent phenomenon, and some analysis suggests it has to do with social media. Since the late 1990s, the ability of social media to garner support around any cause, any issue has support. Flat Earth has major support, right? We have people who associate themselves with Flat Earth. And there are other sort of mechanisms or means. And so like QAnon, right? How many people have gotten behind QAnon? As insane as QAnon is, to a black man, or at least to me, it's insane to even talk about it. Like, I would not take you seriously after I heard the word Q come out your mouth. And yet it's garnered a great deal of support to the point of national levels of politics, right? But it's a little internet thing about a frog named Pepe and some other foolishness, right? And deep-seated racism. But you put that on the internet and you get support for it. So recalls, similarly, are easier now to garner support from rank and file people, to become the champion of recalls, and also to get money constantly sent to you. Look, the internet has created a whole new reality of pimping the game of communications. And everyone's doing it. Kevin Samuels is the god of it right now. He stepped on it by mistake, and all of a sudden it blew up because he's been trying forever, and it finally worked for him. And now he's become this kind of model for it. But almost anybody that can afford a microphone and a camera now can render their opinion publicly. And my problem with it is too much of it is untrained opinion about issues that you need trained opinion around. Your common sense and about astronomy has no standing in the face of Neil deGrasse Tyson. Be quiet and listen. And don't argue with Neil deGrasse Tyson if you believe in the flat earth, because you'll appear absurd. But my point again is the way in which recalls have become more common and more popular. One factor might be social media's ability to garner support for almost any cause.
Okay. Well, you raised several key issues that you in this point. But again, this is the sixth attempt to recall Governor Gavin Newsom, and it's funny that you say that the way the California constitution is set up right now, you could recall the governor for no cause.
No cause.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But because the California legislature allowed that to be the law of the land, and that's what it is.
But this is an attempt to try to allow for more democracy, not the abuse of democracy.
That's correct.
In the progressive era, Congress allowed, around Hiram Johnson, the governor here, Congress allowed for these kinds of accountability measures like referendum and recalls. Propositions, right? California has propositions. America doesn't have propositions. Most states don't have state level propositions like California. 209, 187, 227, name the proposition, right? We have so many propositions at the city level. In a city like San Francisco, we've had about 20 Prop M's, right? And in the state level, we have propositions. That's because it's more democratic. It allows more input from the people. And recall also allows people, if there's abuse in the office, that's what you would think would be attached to the requirements for recall, is some sort of abuse of office. Yes. It does not require abuse of office or abusive. It's simply, if you don't like the governor, get enough signatures and the governor has to answer to you. Well, and in the midst of a pandemic, again, here's the foolishness and the stupidity of this moment. Gavin Newsom, if you measure him objectively against all 50 governors of the states of the United States, Gavin Newsom comes out on top. California came out with a plus $165 billion economy after the first 4 waves of the earlier stages of COVID. Right? He gave a historic record rebate, unprecedented. Gavin Newsom, of course, in terms of African American politics, has been on the right side of most of our issues, in particular this whole reparations effort, right? But again, when you compare Gavin Newsom to the governor of Florida, are you kidding me? Who should be recalled? When you compare Gavin Newsom to the governor of Texas, Abbott, who should be recalled? Gavin Newsom, and I'm no Democrat and I'm no fan of Gavin Newsom. I'm a student of political science and I'm studying the data, and the data says California came out on top of everybody in COVID, and for it, the governor is being recalled. It did better than New York, it did better than Pennsylvania, it did better than Florida. Its economy did better than New York, Pennsylvania, and Florida put together. So that's what. So this is a Republican attempt to thwart what they saw as two potentially powerful forces in American politics in the Democratic column when they saw Trump fail completely with COVID, and that was this guy in New York, Cuomo, who took himself out with his stupidity, and then Gavin Newsom. Who were the two most popular governors in America during COVID? Right? These two Democrats. Now one of them's off the scene and they're trying to take off the other by illegitimate means. If Gavin Newsom survived scandals at the city hall level, right? In California, didn't care, elected a lieutenant governor and governor. The idea that Gavin Newsom is so bad that he should be recalled, I say, where is the evidence? Homelessness is a national problem. We got 80 million people about to be put out the house any day now, right? If Congress doesn't continue to protect them. Immigration is a national problem, right? Crime is a national problem. And the only people really leaving California ain't from California. That's what they don't tell you. U-Haul, cars, everybody's leaving one way. That's not true. People who are from California ain't leaving California. The people that leave California are here for less than 5 years. And then they go back where they came from. But people from California, this is still the best state on the planet Earth.
So, you raised some major points. So, from a legal point of view, the dean of UC Berkeley Law School, Noam Chomsky, wrote an article for LA Times. He basically saying that California recall process is unconstitutional when you put it in part with the United States Constitution. And so the way it's written up that we could end up where a minority of the vote could actually become the government.
This is insane.
And so the stuff that is so important that what the voters need to know, and the reason why we having this type of discussion is that they need to outrightly come and vote no. And that no vote need to have 51%.
That's right.
If that no vote did not have 51%, Gov Newsom is out of office.
That's right. And here's the real kink. If Gavin Newsom only gets 49% support in round one, he's disqualified. He got 49% support. The person who becomes governor can have 3% support in the next round.
Yeah. So
do you see that?
Yes.
4%
So
in the second round. So again, that if you look at the outcome of this, and I said this in a recent news report, I think it backfires on the Republicans because about 70% of the people in California have said they want reforms to this. They're tired of, the idea of California having, 50 different clownish, lampoonish people running for office in serious times. We've seen a man walking around the state with a bear and garbage. Caitlyn Jenner using it as an opportunity to increase Caitlyn Jenner's brand. And you have Larry Elder doing basically what Donald Trump was doing. He knew he had no chance. He knows he has no chance. All Larry Elder did was saw an opportunity to improve and expand his brand that pretty much has been flat for the past 25 years because he's been singing the same old pathetic song. Larry Elder hasn't said anything original in 30 years.
Well, I could only sum it up, and I know I don't want to move ahead of the discussion. Like I said, once those comes you wrote that article, this is the
Urban Chemerinsky.
Yes. The whole process is unconstitutional. So now, after all is said and done, he put the ball back in the California legislature because what the Republicans have actually done, they have abused the process.
That's right.
They have actually abused the process, and it had cost the state of California $300 million to put a recall election.
And we have to have another election next year.
Which
is going to cost another couple of hundred.
Yes, we know that's embedded in the cost of the government.
Right.
But the recall was never something that was actually budgeted for.
Great point.
So in that sense,
I think there's resentment in the electorate.
Yes.
And I think that's going to backfire on the Republicans. Again, it may lead to you have roughly a supermajority in the state legislature and in the Senate.
Oh yes.
So the Democrats can fix this tomorrow when they're ready to, and that's why I think it was a overplay of the Republicans. And I think they were playing with it like a game, trying to see if it would work.
The process.
And then all of a sudden,
he actually worked.
And then he made this fatal move of going to the restaurant in Napa. What do they call it? London.
French Laundry.
What is it?
The French Laundry.
French Laundry. Someplace I can't go. And I think that was the bad look. It's like, yo, dude, you telling us not to go out, you giving us mandates, and on top of this, you being an elitist. So it was the elitism of that, I think, moment that made him look bad. But the timing of it was horrible because that is the fuel that injected this movement that was largely one Republican man who was irritated, and he's behind all kinds of Republican campaigns, and it took on a life of its own because of that news story.
Yes. Well, and you the point that when you look at that action of the governor, which of course in was ill thought out, but in the grand scheme of things, when you look at all what we're dealing with, I'm saying that is de minimis. So and again, so it come back to the point where when it's very petty. And so the whole summation is that political disgruntlement is not a legitimate reason to remove a legitimate elected sitting governor.
A popularly elected governor who won almost 70% of the vote and by almost 35% over John Cox in the previous election. So this idea, again, you have to be careful of the narratives you allow to come into your purview because people will feed you bad news about you and feed you bad news about me and feed you bad news about Gavin, and then all of a sudden you find yourself disliking somebody who you never encountered yourself, but because other people have put out this poison, they end up seeing it. But objectively, you cannot compare any other governor in the state, in the country, to Gavin Newsom's performance in the pandemic crisis. He has been the best in the country, and he's being impeached for it. Because the system allows such a thing, not because he's earned it. And again, I think it backfires on Republicans and actually strengthens Gavin Newsom in the state of California and nationally. And I think it strengthens the California Democrats nationally as a party. They calculated that what happened last time in 2003 with Gray Davis and Cruz Bustamante, who was the Democrat on the ticket, he took some of Gray Davis's vote, people believe, and that allowed Arnold to win. So the Democrats this time, Nancy and other Democrats are studying California, studying this recall. They studied 2003. They made sure there was no well-known name Democrat on the ticket to give somebody an alternative to Gavin Newsom. If you put, say, hypothetically, Javier Becerra's name on that ticket, if he wasn't serving, right? If you put his name on that ticket, bye-bye Gavin Newsom. Because half the vote are going to be like, we like him more. The Latino vote, the black vote, a lot of votes would go, for Javier Becerra over Gavin Newsom. So that would hurt. This is what happened earlier with in the first cycle. And so that's why Democrats did not offer a well-known person. You had this
established
guy,
candidate.
YouTube was Safford, but he was not.
So you're right, and you're right, and the California Democratic Party saw this for what it was and what it is.
Yeah, they were all
the National Democratic Party saw it for what it is
Gavin
and what it was.
And
so when you see all the endorsements, President Obama came out. And he had an ad.
Biden. This is going to help inject Biden. This actually helps Biden because when Biden saw Newsom in trouble, when he first came into office in January, he inflected and invested a bunch of money into California to quell some of this anger towards Gavin Newsom. And this is when the vaccines were developed. And I kept saying in a bunch of news accounts that the recall's strength will die with every injection a Californian gets. Because if that was the cause of the removal or the recall, then it's being resolved every day somebody gets an injection in California. Compare California to other states. Compare a city like San Francisco where you have 90%, 85-90% on the Mayor Breed, vaccine rate, right? We have problems of homelessness and other issues like every other state does. And of course, it can lead to a perfect storm with COVID, but that requires national leadership, international leadership, local leadership, state level leadership, county level leadership. You can't lead that to Gavin Newsom any more than you can, blaming him for COVID. And that's what they seem to be doing, is blaming Gavin Newsom for COVID because they have are they saying he was immoral? Are they saying he stole? Are they saying he mismanaged money? Are they saying he was involved in a police scandal? Are they saying that he had people in his campaign who were corrupt and broke the law? Did they say his campaign broke the law during the elections? They have no legitimate reason, and this is the problem. Not one Republican who is a national Republican can come to California. Kevin McCarthy's from California, and he can't even be used in California. They can't bring Trump. They can't bring his vice president. They can't bring Marjorie Taylor Greene. They can't bring Lauren Boebert. They can't bring this Matt Gaetz. These people. They can't bring any of these people to California.
To that point, the only
and yet Democrats can bring the president, the black president, the black VP president, on down to
from a shadow point.
Come on,
that's what it is.
So there's no comparison to what. Democrats have been awakened. And I think it was stupid on the part of the Republicans because now Democrats are going to stay in campaign mode for the next election. The next election's already lost because they played with this.
So I want to talk about the poll that came out today. It is a very interesting poll. It shows that Governor Newsom is actually ahead. He's ahead by 60%. And so now that leaves the other people to scramble with the rest of the 40% of the vote. So, which is a high number if you really think about it, for
Yeah.
issue that's so frivolous, but that's
Yeah.
where to tell you where we are politically,
Yeah.
how we so divided.
Gavin Newsom had the best August campaign. That's what happened. He was behind in the beginning of, like late July. He was, even in gambling, there are websites that do betting on political contests. And this Vegas-based, measurement was sort of very, I'm not a gambler, so I don't know the right language, but the cost of a bet for Larry Elder was more earlier, like about $25 per bet,
Okay.
and then it dropped to about $11 per bet. Gavin Newsom's was about, I got my numbers definitely wrong on his, but I want to say it was about $18 a bet at one, about $23 a point one bet at one point, and then it went up to about $29. So again, even Vegas has already considered this race over. When I saw that, I know Vegas doesn't make mistakes on their money, on its money, and Vegas has shown that the tides turned in the last month or so, primarily because Democrats just sort of locked in, and they were like, okay, they're trying this again. I think Larry Elder was trying to do a Trump move and rebuff and relaunch his brand nationally to get media and media interviews and press. But his personal life has been so scandalous, that he's been able to get away with it as a radio talk show host. Well, when you're running for governor, people want to know if you carry a 45 and put it to a woman's head and tattoo your name to her body and then despicably put it in public.
To that point, I'm James again. I want to talk more about the process as opposed to the candidate, because they could have easily won another candidate beside Larry Elder.
Yeah.
And
but that's because of the weakness of the Republican Party.
The party. And just like fast forward to 2006 when they won Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
So they could have easily won another candidate.
Yeah.
So they could easily replace Larry Elder. So he speaks to the process.
But you probably can't, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but neither one of us can think of a well-known Republican in the state that anybody would vote for. The Republicans were number 3 for the last 10 years, and in the last, I think, recently they became the second party, but they were behind declining the state.
Well, because he fought all those draconian policy. You went back to Pete Wilson.
Yeah, that's right.
When Pete Wilson came out, Pete Wilson, if the Republican Party want to blame anybody, they should blame Pete Wilson.
He alienated the Latino vote for the next 40 years.
Pete Wilson destroyed the Republican Party in California because of all the draconians. It
going
came
after
out,
Latinos,
going immigration, the 3 strike, and all the other stuff, deregulation.
Yes, sir.
And the Republicans, the Democrats were able to educate the voters. And build up from the ground up.
They spent $70 million on radio. And again, I think black people who do black media and black, social media need to shame the Democrats into funding black media. They need to flood money to sources like this.
Yes.
Podcasts. They need to send money to black radio in San Francisco, Oakland, Bakersfield, Long Beach, Compton, KJLH, everywhere there's black radio, black TV. It should be inundated because that's money coming into the black community. And these Democrats, what they tend to do disrespectfully is just allow us on our own to motivate our own people for our own protection. Because black people support the Democrats, I don't think for affirmative reasons as much as they do for self-protection, for defensive reasons. They were Republicans for 100 years, right? They still have only been Democrats for 55 years, right? And they need another 45 years from 2021 to have been Democrats for as long as they were Republicans. So we still halfway there. That's how long we were Republicans, 1860 to 1960s, 1960 to 2050. We got another 50 years of how deeply Republican black people were, from Lincoln, all right? But at no point did the Republican Party ever love black people, ever, in the history, right? After the abolition movement, which they largely completed themselves through the Civil War, and what Du Bois says in Black Reconstruction was a general strike, the Republican Party had nothing to do with black people for the next 90 years. So black people created their own party called the Black and Tan Republicans, if you look it up. That was the black party. And if you look at the history of the Black Panther Party, they got their name from a black party in Alabama called the Loudoun County Freedom Organization that became the Black Panther Party symbol. And then, of course, the Deacons of Defense in Monroe, Louisiana. But again, when you think about the Democratic Party, in California, it is the National Democratic Party. So if this could happen here, it would be like Donald Trump won the presidency all over again, because that would be the ideology, and it would permeate from California, the safest blue state in the union, and then this person is going to replace an 89, whatever year old Dianne Feinstein is, who they think is ailing, and they can't find her, or people are saying, where's Dianne Feinstein? But this person is going to likely appoint her replacement. And we just got finished being upset about them not replacing Kamala with a sister, you know, but there's some other Latino and other politics they have to sort out. The Filipino politics they have to sort out, you know, there are other people in the Democratic coalition. But I think what I'll say here is Northern California Democrats are the most powerful political force in America. There's nothing that comes close. Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, London Breed, Willie Brown, the Phil Burton machine still reigns in America, and most people don't know that. The thing that runs that why is Northern California more successful than Southern California against Southern California? When you got Kamala going up against Gloria, the Latina sister who messed up and insulted Native peoples, Gloria Sanchez. Remember, she and her sister. Yeah. Kamala beat her, right? Gavin beats Villagorosa from LA, a much larger city, right? 5 times as large, and still loses. And you can see that. This is not true in the legislature as much, but it is true state in general. It's true in the legislature as well.
Well, yes. Well, the thing about California, for the greater part, we have embraced.
So Larry Elder being from the South, again, to me, that told me right away, he has no chance against a Northern California Democrat. Because Northern California Democrats are way more politically mobilized. Women, women's organizations, women Democrats, they are locked in all the unions. You can't find a more politically at the ready community than Oakland and San Francisco and San Jose. This is where Black Lives Matter is. Kaepernick came from. Occupy ended. Man, are you kidding me?
So JT, so that brings us to the key question of the night. The truth, we already basically talk in general, the truth behind this recall is a Republican effort. And all the main players are acting like a straw man. Trump, Kevin McCarthy, and all those other Republicans. So tell me, how do we get to this point as far as like the GOP able to put this into election?
Because the Republicans are playing for 40, 50, 60, 75 years. And Democrats only play every election cycle, to try to keep its discordant coalition together. The Republicans have white people who are conservative from the South and Midwest, homogenous parties, just different continua of conservatisms. The Democrats have blacks and Jews, liberal, women, LGBTQ, unions, Catholics, liberal Protestants. The Democrats have way more to keep together. The Republicans, all they got to do is show up white and angry every year and pretend that there's a real threat coming from African killer bees, Ebola, or critical race theory. It's all the same. Let me be clear. Critical race theory is the new Ebola, the African killer bees, SARS, and Acorn. Remember Acorn?
Yes.
In Chicago? They keep finding things to scare white people with, and then it's Jeremiah, right? That's all this is. Yeah. And you won't hear anything, because these people are too ignorant. If you know anything about critical race theory, you're too intelligent to talk about it being in schools.
That's correct.
Like, if you know about it, you know that it has nothing to do with children. If you know about critical, so they're just using this.
I have never
they're using this,
engaged
but
in
the Republicans,
discussion.
I think to answer your question is the Republicans have no other means except racism at this point. They don't have good policies. Their tax policies are vulgar. The average white working class person that I grew up with on Long Island, I know these white boys, the ones that support Trump. I know MAGA. I knew MAGA 30 years ago. And the fact that they are co-signing on this, where their American dream don't even exist no more. And they're sitting around here supporting a permanent tax break for corporations. And you're supposed to be the populist working class. If you're a white boy who's working class, your granddaddy was a populist in Oklahoma, Nebraska, or Kansas. The Wizard of Oz is all about the people against capitalism. Right? People don't know about the Wizard of Oz. If you go online and Google it, you can break down the politics of the Wizard of Oz. It's kind of deep because it's not just, being in Kansas was very specific to populism and the main sites of communism in America and socialism in America was not New York and Chicago and Detroit where people thought it was, but it was Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. And I tell my students this all the time. And so, the fact that element became conservative with the civil rights movement. That's basically what happened. The civil rights movement happened, and all of these white Democrats that used to be in the New Deal coalition became Ronald Reagan conservatives, Ronald Reagan Democrats. And so both parties now make the racist Reagan Democrats the most important vote constituent bloc to receive every year, the Aaron Brockovich vote, or the Court Vermont, they call it. But check this out. Stacey Abrams showed the Democrats and the Republicans that you can get the never voter as opposed to the periodic voter or the sometimes voter. Get people like that you and I know, that we know, that are ordinary people who don't like to vote. But if we push them a little extra, that's what Stacey Abrams gave black people in Georgia a reason to come out in unprecedented levels. And she did not play games with treating blacks like they were a stepchild. And what the Democrats have done ever since, really, even going back before Bill Clinton, but Bill Clinton did it well, where they basically, you heard Hillary say this to Obama when she ran against Obama. She said, well, Obama, it was in an Ohio primary. Obama can't win, he can't win the white, the hardworking, remember? He said the hardworking, the white voter. And they equated working class with white. Well, working class is a woman at Starbucks. So working class is a young person. Working class ain't no color no more in America. Working class is a struggle, right? It ain't no color no more. And this is what Bernie's campaigns have been about. Bernie Sanders has done America a wonderful service in running his campaigns, however imperfect his politics might be, and he's a socialist millionaire and all of that. That's apart from it. He's done a wonderful job in exposing the excesses of capitalism. And I think what you have in these, a lot of these people that support this sort of backlash politics, like we saw in January, is they're co-signing on something that their grandfathers and grandmothers were against.